Good morning, everybody. I want to try to keep this short because Hugh had said that he's going to have Larry on a little bit early today. Woke up to the news that the president and the first lady tested positive for COVID. You see how disgusting the leftists are, celebrating, wishing ill upon him, when it's probably going to be a whole lot of nothing. Maybe he'll have a sore throat or be tired or something, which he almost never is. So that'll be a big deal for the president, but I'm sure he'll make it through it. We live in a technological age where he's going to be able to do everything that he's got to do, be at all the events that he's got to be at, and he doesn't have to leave home, and hopefully he can spend some time with his wife. Probably be the most peaceful, enjoyable 2 weeks of his presidency. It's a well-deserved vacation. I don't think any of his trips to Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster or anywhere else have been particularly peaceful or quiet, and I think this will be some time for him to enjoy some well-deserved peace and quiet at a very volatile time. But knowing the president and how much energy he has, I doubt he'll really have some peace and quiet. I think he'll still be working hard, just all online. I don't think he's going to be sleeping in. I don't think he's going to be resting. I think he's going to be busy, even though he should. And I think he'll be fine. And I hope and pray to the Avodah Shalom that he will be fine, because he's done an incredible job these past 4 years, despite all odds. Can you imagine if he didn't have the opposition, how much better our lives would be? And our lives are, to be honest, even despite COVID-19, they're still better, I think, than we were under Obama, to be honest. I know my life is. I don't mean that to be cruel to those who have suffered under this. But for the most part, a lot of this has been the government overreaction to this situation has been the problem, and not the actual virus. Whenever anybody says because of COVID-19, blah blah blah, this or that, no. As and I'll say Davar B'Shem Imrei, it's as what's this guy? Dennis Prager always says, it's not the virus that's doing anything, it's the government reaction to the virus. And thank God the president's reaction has been normal and healthy, but also recognizing his place in the limited scope of the federal government. And he's given the reins over to state and local authorities, as he should. And unfortunately, some of the state and local have proved themselves to be dictators. In any event, today is the 14th of Tishrei, Erev Sukkot. It's my zeidy's yartzeit, and Al Schwartz, Baruch Ben Yitzchak, and he passed away in 1997. So that's 23 years, and he was a great influence in my life and still continues to be probably one of the greatest influences in my life. I think certainly the reason why I'm an Orthodox Jew today is because of my zeidy. He influenced me very much, but also the reason why I'm a American conservative and a registered Republican, I would say, is also because of my zeidy. And I don't know that much about his life, but I kind of heard that he went through also changes in his life and became more religious, more conservative, and so forth. But I still have a devotion to him, as a personal saint in a certain way. He was really a quiet but great Baal Chesed. He was one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, and he really went out of his way to hide all of his his holy work, but people knew about it. But he didn't want any recognition. I'm the opposite. I'm a Bareach Achar Kavod, and that's why Kavod is running away from me. But they wanted to be mechabed him one time in the shul. They wanted to make him the guest of honor or something. And he said, if you give me honor, I'm going to stop doing all the stuff I do. And by Shiva, he said something along that one of the neighbors said that he would always bring the neighbor over to work on his way. He was a parole officer, worked for the state, and on his way to work, he would take this neighbor whose work was on the way. And then one day, the neighbor saw him after dropping the neighbor off from work. He was going the opposite direction, and he said, "What's this, Al?" And he said, "Oh, today's my day off." But he still, the person could have driven themselves. Just he wanted to do something nice for somebody else. The fact was, on his deathbed, he said, "Well, now who's going to drive the other neighbor, Morris?" I suppose neighbor's named Morris, but there were two Morrises. So he said, "Who's going to drive Morris to the airport for his winter trip to Florida?" That was my Zeta. That was what he was thinking about as he was leaving this world. His job was to do somebody else a favor, and also I remember how lessons they taught me, just quiet lessons. I remember we were watching Seinfeld, and my sister was there, and I always fought with my sister, and we're at Zaydy's house, and we were fighting, and he just quietly got up and turned off the TV, and that was it. And the lesson was learned. Stop fighting. He was politically conservative. He was a religious Zionist in the anti-Zionist form. He loved Meir Kahana. He wanted to see Israel become a religious state. And when Meir Kahana was kicked out of the Knesset, he davened in the Young Israel Shul, where they said it's Tefillah L'Shlama Medina, right? And once they kicked Kahana out of the Knesset, I guess in the modern shuls, they stand up when they say the Tefillah L'Shlama Medina, when they say the prayer for the state of Israel. My Zayda refused to stand once they kicked Kahana out of the Knesset. So then my whole opposition to praying for the state of Israel, I could say I was rooted by my Zayda. And like we mentioned before, Meir Kahana recognized that the Satmarav, that's also Torah. So, and my Zayda, he was very proud of his Hungarian heritage. He was a big Bal Yichus, which I only found out maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm very proud of that. He was an Einikel from the Maral Miprak, from the Chamas Yoyer, from Moshe Ari Kruler, from Moshe Spitz, the Chengaruv, from Radanaruv, from Altofenruv, from Reb Levi Ushalmi, who was the Rav in Temeshvar and in Belgrade. So we big yichus that came from my Zayda that I didn't know about. So and he was very proud of his Hungarian heritage. He told us stories about when he was a child. He was American born, but he was raised only speaking Hungarian. I think it was on the Lower East Side. They didn't speak Yiddish, even though his parents were fluent in Yiddish. They spoke Hungarian. They were a little bit less religious. But once my Zayda's father passed away, then my Zayda started to go to shul every day and say Kaddish. And then once that happened, he decided he's just going to go every day after, because they were there for him when he had to say Kaddish, so he's going to be there for them. and it really, he grew in Torah and Yer Shemayim through that. But before we get to that, it's such a funny story. They told me when he was a child, he saw a blind man with the glasses and the cane walking, and the blind man asked my zeidy in Hungarian, "Will you help me cross the street?" And he said, "Sure." So then, after he crossed the street, he asked the blind man, "How did you know that I spoke Hungarian?" He said, "Well, I saw you were holding a Hungarian newspaper." So, the one thing that I want to end off with, I might say he served in Korea, but one thing I want to end off with was in the shul, the Rav Meir Belitsky, Zeichet Tzaddik Livracha, very choshev yid. He gave a shir once a week, Gemara shir, on Shabbos afternoon before Mincha. And all of those who started, so it took them about, 15 years to get through Masechet Sanhedrin. So when they started learning Sanhedrin, all of those who started, I think this was sometime around when I was born, in the mid '80s, they signed their names in the front of the Gemara, and those who had started and were there for the Siyum signed their names at the end, and there was maybe 10 people at the beginning, and 3 or 4 at the end that were the same, and my zeidy was one of them. So that's his Olam Haba Masechta, and it's one of my favorite Masechtas, one of the most interesting Masechtas in Shas. I know people find it to be a little controversial outside of our circles, but it's and so I'm learning Bava Metzia now. So Mirza Hashem, if God grants me the grace and strength, in a few weeks we'll be learning Sanhedrin. So I'll be able to remember my Zayda. After Sanhedrin, they learned Makos. That was when the art scroll came out, Makos. And I don't know if he made it through Makos. I think he was Nifter before they were Messiah Makos. But that's the. But they said that Rabbi Belitsky never cried at a funeral except my Zayda. It was Erev Yantiv, and we had to go through. I wasn't able to go to Levaya. I was at school, and they only sat Shiva for 5 minutes because Erev Yantiv, and I remember going to be by my Baba for Simchas Torah, and how, we couldn't, it was a tough Simchas Torah because we had to force ourselves to be B'Simcha when we really didn't want to. And, but now, I still have my Zeidy with me, and Baruch Shalom should help it. Neshama's love and Aliyah, and we should all be zeichet to learn Torah and to daven, and do mitzvahs, do chesed, give tzedakah, and in this chus we should be zeichet to all do what we're supposed to do, and be good L'chiyidin, and work hard and live up to the example that people in our past have given us. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and also let's daven that the President and the First Lady should be healthy and well. Donald John Ben Mary and Lonnie Ben Amelia. Salman Rafia Shleimus, Laban Gezind. It should be nothing. This virus should do nothing to them. Just be a slight inconvenience, and they should be stronger than ever before afterwards, and they should continue for 4 more years in January to serve this country and make America great again, and keep America great, and help make the whole world great, because like Ronald Reagan said, this America is a shining city on the hill, and without America the world is doomed. Not doomed, we have hope Mashiach will come, but Al derech hateva, this world needs America, and I really believe that if we follow the ideals of America, that's what's going to bring Mashiach more than all the nonsense that Zionim have done for 70 years, bringing with Sicha and Shvichas Damim and the Gilurais and Hoder Zara, Shvichas Damim to the world. Lord Shalom should help us. We should be able to learn and daven and do what we're supposed to do, for Kedusha and Tahara, and like the holy Zayda Chizkiyahu Melech said, that Filu loyal Taras Kodesh is also good, that we should at least try our best to serve the Kodesh Loyal and do tshuva and have a good Simchas Yantiv and have a good Yantiv of Chag Sameach and all the best. God bless.